further ado, I do want to ask Mike to say a few words to the group before we begin.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. I'm glad we have such good turnout for this. So I'm really excited about this training, and I've especially been impressed with the ILG team and looking back at the partnership that we've had. I feel like we've already learned a lot, and I've seen some of the expertise firsthand, and am particularly excited to share it with this department and make sure that we're really at the top of our game, because engagement and outreach and communications are just so important. And why is it important? Because if we're not getting input in a way that is equitable and that is really allowing all of the voices in our city to be heard, and capturing that into our planning process, and then providing that information up to our decision makers, our city council, our mayor, our process is not really quite as valid as it should be. And that matters a lot. That matters at the end of the day when we're seeking approval for something. And it also affects the content of our policies and our proposals. And if all of the engagement is not solid, it affects the content and affects our ability to at the end of the day, to get our work program accomplished. And to get our work program accomplished means to serve the public interest and further planning in the city. So this is like a critical step to getting everything done. What I'm hoping to have the department take away is learning new tools on how to engage, how to make sure that we are outreaching to different voices, to make sure that our engagement is representative, to learn new tools. We have had, I think, more of an emphasis over the last few years on digital engagement tools. We've done a great job with the Claremont tool, the Mira Mesa tool. Building that out, I think, is going to be a top priority. And the other thing is, as I've shared with all of you before, I really identified this as a priority a few years ago and sought to create a position in the budget and build out a program for public engagement. Because of our budget struggles over the last couple of years, we haven't been able to do that thus far. I don't think it's something that can wait. We just need to start learning best practices, and we need to start doing it in each of our daily tasks in the department. And so I'm really excited about today, and especially the group that is presenting to us. It's really an impressive group, and I think we have a lot to learn and share with the ILG.
Great. Thanks so much, Mike. Just for those of you who don't know who ILGE is, we are the nonprofit affiliate of the League of California Cities, the California State Association of Counties, and California Special Districts Association. We've been around for about 65 years, working with local governments and helping provide resources and trainings to help them really implement sound policies on the ground. So we've worked with multiple local governments throughout that time, and we've learned a lot from them. So we incorporate all the best practices that we learn and try to share them back throughout. We've really come in contact with this group through our Boost program. About a year and a half ago, we selected 10 cities and 2 regions to provide technical assistance and capacity building support for those, to really help build, optimize, organize, strengthen, and transform, really around climate and resilience. But we've done things in a multitude of areas, from grant writing to strategic planning to facilitating conversations with the community, and really happy to be a part of this with San Diego. And so the Institute actually has 4 pillars. Public engagement is one of those pillars. And so we've been doing trainings for many years in public engagements. Some of the group here had the opportunity to participate in our TIERS training about a year ago in the city of San Diego. We also have 3 other pillars, as we call them. One is sustainability and resilience. The other is leadership and governance, and the other is workforce and education. And so in all of those 4 pillars, we provide education and training, technical assistance, capacity building, and we do convenings here. So with that, you know a little bit more about us. We want to know a little bit more about you. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Melissa, to give us the Zoom logistics.
Our colleague Hannah. We're all one team here at ILG. Okay, Zoom logistics we're using for this meeting today. We are recording this training. We're asking you kindly to stay on mute to minimize background noise. Chat box, let's make it engaging and active. The beauty of the chat box is that you plug in your questions and the whole ILG team is here today at this training and they're on standby to answer your questions and also share with us your thoughts, your reactions in the chat box. Questions, comments, thoughts. There's about 28 of you in this group. So we do appreciate if you raise your blue hand if you have a question. And I assume everyone knows where to find a blue hand. But if you guys don't know, it's when you click on the participants on the bottom of your screen on the right-hand side, the pop-up panel with participants gonna pop up and your blue hand is gonna be on the bottom. And if you haven't had a chance to rename yourself, please, your first name and your last name would much appreciated. Back to Melissa.
Great, thank you. So now that you know a little bit about us and ILG, we're hoping to just do some quick introductions around the room. We're going to do this in kind of a round robin style. So I'm just going to go through the participant list and call on your name. So when I call your name, please just share your name, your job title, and then as a quick icebreaker, if you could just in one word say what comes to mind when we say public engagement. So Alejandra, I'm going to pick on you first because I see you first on my list. So please unmute yourself and if you could introduce yourself and model this process. Can you hear us, Alejandra?
Now, there's two buttons for unmute. Yeah, the one under my name and then one that pops in the middle. So I'm Alejandra Warner. I'm with the Office of ADA Compliance and Accessibility, and now we're part of the Mobility Department. Public engagement, I mean, like we handle, we coordinate the Accessibility Advisory Board. So it means to bring out the community and hear their concerns and share what are our policies and accessibility that we're doing. So we do like engaging the public when we come up with new policies. So where we were all in, we have to do it for our transition plans, accessibility transition plans. It's part of our job also engage the public and the decisions that we take regarding transition plans.
Great, thank you, Alejandra. Alex, I see you next. So please share your name, your title, and one word that comes to mind when we say public engagement.
Good morning, everyone. Alex Frost, Senior Planner. 2 words, community voices. Thanks.
Perfect, thank you. Alfonso? We will come back to Alfonso. It looks like he might be having trouble with muting. Colette?
Yes, my name is Colette Redon. I'm a senior planner here at the planning department. And when I think about public engagement is connecting.
Perfect, thank you. Elizabeth?
Elizabeth Dixon, Associate Planner. One word, chaos.
That definitely can be true. Hopefully we'll give you some tools to make it a little less chaotic today. Heidi, I see you next.
Good morning, Heidi Von Blum, Deputy Director in the Planning Department. I don't know why it's echoing so much, sorry about that. And my one word is relationships.
Perfect. I'm totally going to mispronounce this next name, so I apologize. Hayen?
Hi, Jen.
Hey, Jen. Sorry about that. Okay, they may be having some challenges with the.
She's
Um,
typing in her response. So she's typing in, I am Hyjin. Hyjin, if you want to type anything else, I can read it out. Her one word is complaints.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Jonathan? Are you all having trouble coming on and off mute? Do we need to fix any of our?
I think
Or
it
something.
depends on the platform we're using. Like I said before, if we are doing a remote, the remote desktop using Zoom through the remote desktop, we do not have our speakers and or video are not working. So it has to be a different platform.
So basically, when people remote in offices, the arrow, there's no speakers. And so even though you're on your laptop, you don't have a speaker when you remote in. So when your name is called, if you don't have a speaker, just type it into the chat and then maybe Melissa, you can read it out.
So maybe for the troubleshoot,
Okay. Yeah, go ahead,
the
Hannah. I was probably gonna say the same thing.
for the troubleshoot in real time, folks, for those of you whose speakers are not working on your computer, which is totally fine, we suggest you use your cell phones and join the audio of this meeting via the cell phone. I'm gonna type in the chat box the phone number to call in. So call that phone number, and ideally you type your participant ID. And to find your participant ID, it's a little tricky. It's on the top left corner of your screen, top left corner with the little green shield type of sign. And that green shield type of sign has a pull down menu that shows you your participant ID and meeting ID. So I'm gonna type the phone number and meeting ID to call in. And for those of you who don't have speakers working properly at the moment, please use your cell phone audios to join. See how it works.
Perfect. Thanks, Hannah. Appreciate you helping us troubleshoot this. I'm going to keep going with the introductions. Hopefully you guys are able to reconnect to the audio. I see Jordan next.
Hi, I'm Jordan Moore, and I'm an associate planner here in the planning department. When I think of public engagement, I suppose my one-word response would be challenging.
Thank you. Julia?
Hi everyone, Julia Chase. I'm a senior planner, and my one word would be communication.
Thanks, Julia. Katie?
Hi everybody, I'm Katie Witherspoon, senior planner. My one word would be inclusion.
Great. Kelly?
Hi, I'm Kelly Stanko. I'm a development project manager, and I agree with Jordan. My one word would be challenging.
Definitely understandable. Lisa, I see you next.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lisa Lind. I'm a senior planner, and my one word is connections.
Thanks, Lisa. Liz?
Hi, everybody. My name is Liz Sidkonian. It's my first day, so I know many of you probably don't know me. I'm a senior planner, and then my one word would be participation.
Thanks, Liz, and welcome. Congratulations on joining such a great team. Melissa?
Good morning, Melissa Garcia. I'm a senior planner. Liz also took my word. It was participation.
No problem. We can definitely have the same word. Michael Prince?
Good morning, everyone. Michael Prince, senior planner in the planning department. My one word is necessary.
Thanks, Michael. Mike, I know you already introduced yourself, but do you want to share anything else around what public engagement means to you?
Sure. So I think my word would be foundational.
Great, thanks, Mike. Myra?
Hi, my name is Myra Herman. I'm a senior planner in the senior environmental planner. Sorry, my word would be collaboration.
Thank you. Nancy?
Hi, I'm Nancy Graham and I'm a development project manager, and I'm going to use 2 words, and that's come prepared.
That's definitely good advice. We're going to talk a lot about that today. Nate?
Hi, Nathan Cosman. I'm an associate planner. I have 2 words, good government.
Great, thank you. Nicole on our team, she didn't get a chance to introduce herself earlier. So Nicole, do you want to just do a quick intro of yourself?
Oh, there we go. Hi, Nicole Enright. I'm Associate Program Manager, and I will say that I really like Mike's word of foundational.
Thanks, Nicole. And Nicole's going to be helping us a lot on the back end and with the breakout groups a little bit later, so you'll hear more from her. Oscar?
Morning, Oscar Galvez, Senior Planner, prepare.
Thanks, Oscar. Rebecca?
Rebecca Malone, Senior Environmental Planner, and I'd say frustrating.
Oh, definitely hear that too. Hopefully, again, we'll give you a few tips today that will make it a little bit easier for you all to do this. But definitely understand that sentiment. Reza?
Good morning. I can't get my camera work. My name is Reza Talagani, Senior Civil Engineer, and my word is getting communities buy-off.
Definitely important. Samira?
Hi, I'm Samira Rao. I'm a development project manager with the planning department, and my one word is complex.
Definitely can be complex. Shannon?
Good morning, Shannon Mulderig, Associate Planner, and my word is trust.
That's a great one, thank you. Tanner?
Hey there, everybody. Tanner French, a senior traffic engineer, and I think that public engagement is very interesting.
That covers a whole host of different meetings. Definitely it is interesting. Tara?
Hi, Tara Ash Reynolds, Environmental Planner, and my word would be turnout.
Thank you. And Vicki?
Hi there. Excuse me. My name is Vicki White, Senior Planner, and I think I'll go with 2 words since I'm at the end. The education and representation.
Yes, both of those are definitely key. Did I miss anybody that now has working audio and can share?
Yeah, I think I got skipped. Jonathan Avila, park designer, and my one word is inclusion.
Thank you, Jonathan. I apologize for that. Thank you for sharing. Okay, great. So thank you guys for bearing with us. Obviously, we just modeled one of the challenges of virtual engagement in terms of audio and making sure everybody's connected. So thanks for bearing with us through that troubleshooting, and hopefully everybody now is able to hear us and to participate with their phones if needed. So I'm going to turn this back over to Hannah to just quickly cover the agenda for today.
Great, thank you, Melissa. Okay, so what we're doing today is we're covering a lot, but there's a lot of introductions at the beginning, and which is great. Everyone has an opportunity to speak and participate. So after this, we're gonna set the stage. What do we mean by public engagement? Surprisingly, we all have a different definitions of public engagement. So we'll set the stage with one definition. We're going to then continue talking about planning for successful meetings and why it's important to determine the purpose, goal, and desired outcomes up front, why this work is so crucial. We're going to take a little 5-minute break so you can refill your coffee, and we'll come back as a group and talk about digital tools and meeting platforms and how those tools meet your public meeting goals and desired outcomes. Then we're going to break you into small groups and send it into small group exercise. When we come back from that small group exercise for about 20-minute exercise, each group will report out. And then we're going to wrap up and adjourn at noon. Next slide, please. So training objectives, instead of me going through 4 training objectives, I would like 4 people from the group read one objective at a time. And if you don't mind, I'm gonna call on people. Why don't we start with Shannon? Shannon, please read the first training objective. And then we're gonna go to Tanner for the second training objective.
First training objective, develop practical skills, learn new tactics, and discover digital tools to plan and implement productive public meetings.
Great, thank you so much. Tanner, can you share with us the second training objective?
Number 2, demonstrate interactive digital and in-person meeting techniques, including a mix of small group and large group discussions, interactive activities, and practical application exercises.
Great, thank you for that. Then I'm gonna go to Vicky for the third training objective and Nate for the fourth one. Vicky, can you share with us the next training objective?
Definitely. It is learn new tactics and tools to manage and respond to diverse viewpoints and navigate contentious meetings or interactions with stakeholders.
Great. Nate, what's our last training objective?
Connect with your colleagues to share real-world experience and provide mutual support for successful public engagement work.
Okay, perfect. Let's get right into it. Melissa?
Thanks, Hannah. As Hannah just mentioned, we're just going to do some high-level overview here to make sure we're all using the same terminology and talking about public engagement in the same way. In our experience, sometimes groups we talk to kind of convolute some of these ideas, so we just want to make some distinctions between some of this terminology in terms of how we use it. So civic engagement is resident involvement in civic and political life in their community, whether that's sitting on a PTA or participating in a service club or coaching a little league team. It's that real involvement in their community. And then we have public information and outreach. This is kind of your general local government one-way communication out. So you do this a lot through your PIO or through your communications team's information on websites, newsletters, things like that. That can be part of a public engagement strategy as you're informing your community, but the public information outreach piece is mainly a one-way communication out to your community. Related to that, you have marketing and advertising. So this is really promotional pieces that sometimes you would pay for, whether that's actual ads you take out on websites or in print publications or on your radio or TV stations or things like that. Marketing to get people to your events or things like that. So that's definitely related to the outreach and public information piece. And then we have public engagement. And this is really a foundational piece of two-way communication. So you're taking that information out, like you do for your public information and outreach piece, but then you're also gathering feedback in from your community. And so it's that feedback loop and two-way communication. It can take a ton of different forms, and we're going to talk about that a little bit today. But just really know that that's earmarked by the two-way communication and feedback loop of a connection with your residents. So we look at this as a spectrum. We borrowed this graphic here from the IAP2, which is the International Association for Public Participation. There's a longer piece in the information we sent out yesterday that has a graphic that has a whole bunch of information about what each of these pieces mean. But the really important takeaway here is that it's a spectrum, and to be very clear about where you are on this spectrum, about the type of feedback that you're looking for and the type of engagement you're looking for with your community. So on the far left-hand side, you see inform. And so that's going to be really related to that public information and outreach piece that we just talked about, that one-way communication and education out to your community. As you move through the spectrum into consult and involve, that's where you're really moving into more of the public engagement space, where you're getting information back in from your community through focus groups, through surveys, through other types of stakeholder interviews or stakeholder convenings, things like that. And as you move farther up to the right on the spectrum into collaborate and empower, that's where you're really turning decision-making power over to your community. It's not something you see a ton in local government. It's not appropriate or available in a lot of times for local governments, but just know that there's a range of types of involvement for your community and making sure that you're clear on where you are on that spectrum and what type of information you need. And definitely take a look at that handout that we sent. There's more information there about what those different types of activities could look like. And we will also talk about this a little bit more later as we talk about some of the tools and where they fall on this spectrum.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. And I just shared the handout in the chat box, so you can download and look at it a little bit closer. Okay, authentic public engagement. Can I get like some reactions of thumbs up or claps if you've heard this word a lot recently? Authentic public engagement. Any reactions? I see the reaction from ILG. Of course, Nicole, you've heard that word. San Diego team, authentic public engagement, reactions. Yes, this word I hear over and over again. Well, I don't know, for those of you who are applying for the state grants, that's what they're asking, authentic and meaningful public engagement. Make sure that the projects and plan that you are applying for and asking money for have been developed with the community together, and that engagement is authentic. So what we actually mean by that and what the state means by that. Definitely inclusive public engagement. When we look around in the room, in the Zoom room, in the physical room, who is attending those meetings, who is participating, who is submitting the input, does those people represent the composition of your community, socioeconomic characteristics of your community, or you're seeing like one feature? Do you have a mix of younger people of all ages? Do you have a cultural mix in your room? Do you have different people with different economic incomes in your room? So that's inclusive. Understand who is in your community, groups in your community, and ensure that those groups are represented. Accessible. This topic is more important than ever because when we're talking about the digital divide, suddenly digital engagement is not accessible because of the technology. But even back in pre-COVID world, when we host public workshops and public meetings in the late hours, people cannot attend. People with families and kids, they have troubles participating. So when we talked about what accessible means, we always talked about make sure there's a childcare, some food and dinner, make sure it's next to the bus stop so people who don't have a car can get to this public meeting. So thinking creatively, if people cannot participate, what can we do for them to provide this access to participation? Dialogue, how many meetings, how many public workshops we've been to where it's very lecture heavy, one-way information out. People participate in these meetings, they come and they listen to a lot of information and they do not have chance to have this dialogue even with the city staffers or any other folks in the meeting. So dialogue is very important. And culturally competent, especially very applicable to communities where a lot of immigrants live, a large percent of immigrants live, and they just, they come to these meetings and it's not very easy for them to participate for a variety of reasons, including some cultural reasons. And at the end, so this is some of the boxes that, ILG has been working around to ensure that we check all these boxes. It's an inclusive, accessible, dialogue, culturally competent, but that's not the whole list. You as a team, you know your community, who's in your community, you as a team, as a department, as residents, you also determine what other features for your public engagement will make it authentic.
So a number of you said things like challenging or frustrating when we went around the room this morning. So why would you do this? Aside from the fact that in some instances it's state mandated, there's also another host of benefits that we see and we have seen throughout the state of why you would really engage in this in these activities and want to do this well. So the first one is you will have a better sense of your community's values, ideas, and recommendations. This is really important on contentious issues, having that core understanding of where they're coming from, what they value, and that they aren't just coming to potentially yell at you. There may be a deep-seated value or something that they want to see in their community, their vision for their community, that's really the foundation of their concerns. So doing this authentically and early can definitely help you ID some of those values and head off future challenges as you move through these processes.
At the end of the day, whether public participated in one workshop or a series of workshops, they are more informed. Not only they are more informed about the issue, they're more informed about the local agency that match you, they understand things a little bit better, and it's always a good thing.
So from where we sit in terms of having our foundation of ILG and good government and all of that, we really see public engagement as improving local decision making. So this goes back to both what Hannah and I just shared, but having that foundation of understanding your community will just lead to better decision making. And you see the other benefits there in terms of being able to come back to not having to revisit ideas, hopefully streamline some of these processes. So just overall better decision making processes.
Authentic community engagement does lead to more community buy-in and support and less contentiousness. And again, I want to emphasize authentic public engagement. And those of you who have time to read articles from the Planning Association magazine, you probably read several articles, not only case studies, but regular studies where that show that authentic engagement leads to more community buy-in.
So related to that, you also can see faster project implementation. And from where you all sit in the planning department, you know that the projects you're working on take a long time to implement and get through the decision-making process and actually get on the ground and built. And so the last thing you need is to have to go back to the community and reopen all of these conversations. So again, doing this authentically, doing this early can really ease that implementation process.
We do see more trust as a result of authentic public engagement. It's not always the case, but again, the level of trust increases.
So we are going to model a number of virtual exercises and ways that you can get feedback from your community throughout these 2 days. Since we're obviously all in a fully remote environment right now, it can definitely be harder to get that engagement and that authentic dialogue going with your community in that kind of setting. So we're going to give you a number of tools that you can use on different platforms to do this well. So we're going to ask you to test this first one. So you can do dot voting on Zoom. I'm not sure if it's a feature that you all are familiar with. So we're going to have you test this for us. But if you go up to the top of your screen, you see this example here. If you go to the top and go to annotate, and then you should see an option for stamp, and you can pick what your stamp looks like. And then once you click on the screen, you should see that pop up. So go ahead and try that for us, and then we're gonna see some of these working. Yeah, perfect.
Stamp of hearts, it's fine. Don't draw on this, please.
And if you do happen to accidentally click, the first time I tried this, I didn't realize that every time you moved your cursor, it would click. You can hit undo and remove your stamp also, just as a quick note for you all. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to move on to this next slide, and we want you all to demonstrate this. So let me clear all of our. And then as the host, you have the ability to clear people's stamps as well. But we're hoping that you can put your stamp on the one of these that resonates the most with you. Either that in your experience is really true, or something that you hope to see as you move through your community engagement processes. And then try to cluster them together just a little bit so that we can see where there's some consensus. Perfect. I see some of you dropping things in.
And Jordan is asking if this feature is available on the phone. I haven't tried it personally on the phone, but Jonathan, why don't you scroll through different screens and see if you can find this feature on the phone and let us know. But it's a good question.
All right.
And folks, for those of you who are doing the drawing, you can click on undo button and remove your drawing, or just click on your clear little, yeah, you can remove those. If you place the wrong sign, you can remove that by clicking undo.
All right, perfect. So thank you guys for humoring us. We just wanted to show you one way that you can get some quick feedback from your community in a virtual environment. This is kind of a dot voting exercise that we would normally do with flip charts and little sticky dots that would allow people to agree with things that are there, and you can start to kind of see consensus. So if you look at this screen here, it looks like a lot of you are marking the more community buy-in and support with less contentiousness. That makes a lot of sense from where you all sit in the planning department with projects and housing and all of those things that can definitely be very contentious with your community. So thanks for humoring us. We're gonna again demonstrate a number of these type of activities throughout the next 2 days, just to give you guys an idea of what you can do in a virtual environment. Oh, so let me clear all of these off.
Real quick, Melissa and Hannah, we have a couple questions in the chat I wanted to address if we have a second. So Tara shared for the phone that users just have the arrow or draw. That's what she saw on her phone. So that's good to know. And then one question from Kelly, does Zoom allow you to control the types of annotations that people can do? Like if we don't want them adding text? We saw folks getting pretty creative with some highs and some drawings. So what are our options there?
Yes, that's a good question, Kelly. And last time I spent like an hour in Zoom settings, I did not see those levels of control. My understanding with this annotate tool, there's definitely control to erase, but there's no control on different types of annotate tools. So again, going back to knowing your audience and being clear on the purpose of your meeting and anticipating who is in the room at what may come up, which we're going to talk about it today. It's going to be your design meeting choice, whether you want to use this tool or not in your public meetings. Thanks, Nicole.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we're going to demonstrate another type of digital tool to get feedback here. This is an instant polling tool that's an anonymous polling that you can do on your smartphone or through any browser you have, whether you're on a computer or a tablet. So we've got a few questions for you here to help set the stage. So if you can go to sift.ly, either on your phone or again on your computer or tablet, and then you see the participant code there. We've got a few questions for you to get us started. And if you're having like the first time I used the annotate tool, it also stays with you. So you do need to go. You can go in and close out of that if you want to use your cursor without leaving the stamps after you're done with your dot voting exercise. Okay, let me pull this over. All right, hopefully you guys can see my browser now instead of the PowerPoint.
Yes, we can see that, Melissa.
Perfect. And I see a number of you have already connected, so I'll give you just another minute here to get connected to the.
And while we're getting connected, I see a question about, is MeetingSift a free tool?
You want to go, Hannah?
I feel like you guys, when it comes to digital tools for digital engagement, there's not a lot of free tools out there. There's a free version of Meeting Sift, but like you're getting into the Meeting Sift in just a seconds. You just type in and you're there. There's a free version of Meeting Sift, but each participant has to like do some type of registration before getting into that voting participation space. But the short answer is, yeah.
It is very affordable though, in terms of some of the other tools that we've seen. And I actually believe, Heidi, you might be able to respond to this, but I believe you guys did get a subscription to this after we used it over the summer.
I actually don't know if we did.
Okay.
I don't think that we did.
Hello, Amanda, this is Martin Flores.
Question.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to quickly follow up on why I asked the question. We've been using Mentimeter sporadically for the last year, but it expires in, I think, February. I used it for a forum back in February, and then we've used it for a few things. I think it's similar, so that's why I was asking if this was free, but thank you for answering.
And it's a sliding scale, again, like a lot of these tools are, and really dependent on how many access points you need. So you can vary from having 100 people that can participate to up to 500 people or more. So it also, again, depends on your needs, and the price is a scale based on that. Okay, so it looks like most of you are connected. I'm going to go ahead and launch this first question. If you're still working to connect, the URL and the code will stay in the top right-hand corner of your screen. And this first one is just to get you used to the software. So if you aren't connected yet, don't worry.
Hey, first question, how much caffeine have you had today? Let's see. Let's learn something about this group. Ooh. Okay, about 45% are saying 2 servings, 38% are saying 1 serving, 17 none, and no one had 3 or more servings. Impressive. Usually we have a lot of 3+ servings that early in the morning.
The day is young.
Today is young. I love that.
Okay, I'm gonna get, so this, again, the code will continue to stay on the top right-hand side of your screen there. And if you are having trouble connecting, feel free to chat our team and they can help you troubleshoot this. But we'll go ahead and get into the next question.
What components of public participation are you involved in? It's a good group, so we're interested in learning what are you actually doing when it comes to public engagement? What are you responsible for? Oh, I do it all. It's just popping up. We're hoping there's some delegation but looks like most of you do it all: design and planning, leading, data analysis, and reporting. And there's no decision making here. Okay, take a look at the results. You're very busy with public engagement, and it's a lot of work. How much public participation are you seeing in this new virtual environment? And I feel like we should drop the word new because it's been 9 months. I think it's time. Okay, 70% of you are saying more than before the COVID crisis, even more public participation. 22% don't know, 4% about the same, and 4% less, saying less public participation than before the COVID crisis. What are the top 3 challenges you face with public engagement? And this question is going to be out of 5 or 6. You're going to pick top 3. What are the top 3 challenges you face with public engagement? Let's wait just for another moment for results. Because as you can see on the screen, as people are participating, the top 3 are changing a little bit. Okay, so always same to people who.
Just one quick note on this type of question. Once you make your selections, you do have to hit submit for them to pop up on the screen. So make sure you're doing that step as well.
Okay, let's take a look at the results. Number one, always the same people who participate. We hear that time after time, you're not alone. Politically extreme participants, yes. Insufficient staffing, time, and funding, followed by uninformed residents and more tools to engage. Thank you for sharing. Okay, what is hard about virtual public meetings or workshops? Please share with us what is hard. And you're gonna type your thoughts and experiences.
And you can submit more than one time. So if you've got more than one challenge, you can definitely share that.
Getting people to participate, keeping the meeting on track. Oh, we'll talk about it tomorrow, how to keep the meetings on track. Balancing security with real-time feedback. Yes, it can be a challenge. No funding for appropriate platforms. Yes, those platforms are so expensive. Educating public on important policy level issues. Technical issues, happens all the time, right? Meeting management, we'll talk about that tomorrow. Hard to make connections. Yes, we've heard that about Zoom. Authentic communication. Training on how to use platforms. Technology inequality, yes, that digital divide. Harder to build relationships, absolutely. We've heard that a lot from other jurisdictions, so you guys are not alone. Short timelines to do outreach. All good thoughts, very valid reflections and reasons. Stuff. What's working well? What will you likely keep doing when it comes to virtual workshops and meetings? What's working well? Let's talk about positive. More people are attending, a little bit more flexibility in terms of time. Recording meetings is benefit. Number of participants in meetings have increased. More people have more opportunity to engage. More flexible timing, yes, middays, right? Focused activities, for sure. Easier to attend for city and public. People can stay informed and choose when to participate. Ability to control meetings. Oh, the Zoom powers, we love those. Flexible timing, so yes, what we're hearing, more participation, more flexibility, more opportunities to participate, which is great. More people are engaging. Yes, we've noticed in that, we've heard that from different jurisdictions. We're observing this across the California, which is an interesting trend. Save time compared to in-person meetings. Yes, time and resources, absolutely.
No travel, right? Okay, and I think this is our last question here.
What are the most common techniques and tools you use to gather feedback in public meetings? What tools and techniques you're using? Questions and polls, yes, very common. Dot voting, polls. Discussion breakout groups, yes, we'll love to see that. Open Q&A, chat, absolutely. Zoom polls. Email after. Open discussions. So yeah, basically what I'm hearing from your feedback, what you're typing is you're utilizing a lot of platforms features, polls, chat box, Q&As, dot voting, small group breakouts to facilitate those discussions and hear from your community, which is great. And let's look at the word cloud of your most common techniques and tools that you use to gather feedback. Polls and discussions, usually with the larger font, it's what people mentioned the most in the comments. Okay, and that's our word cloud.
Perfect. So thank you guys for participating. So again, that's just one option that you can use to do some in-person, there we go, to get some real-time feedback. What we've noticed about this particular tool is it is anonymous, so your participants may feel more comfortable participating. To Hannah's point a little bit earlier about knowing your audience, some of those open-ended questions can be a little bit tricky. If you might get some interesting responses when you just let people type whatever they want into the form, but it has a bunch of different question types, so you can control what types of questions and what types of feedback you're getting. So just make sure you are thinking about who will be in the audience and how they might react to that. Okay. So now that we've talked a lot about setting the stage and how to think about public engagement, we're going to kind of walk through the process of how you would make some of these determinations in terms of what types of tools you might use, which types of platforms you might choose to do some of this virtual engagement. So the first step is really thinking through a number of questions about where you are, who you need to engage, what type of feedback you're looking for. So we're going to walk you through some of these questions that you're going to really want to think about before you make any of these determinations about platforms and tools and things like that. So again, there is no one-size-fits-all option here, unfortunately, that we can tell you. It really is going to depend on a number of these things. So the first one is where you are in the process. So what timeline are you working with? Are you just getting started and really looking for a whole host of feedback from your community on a number of different things? Are you in a selection phase where you're narrowing down options and you want them to help prioritize with you? Or are you really going to council next month and you're kind of in that end phase and just trying to share information with your community about where you are in the process and what's happening? That's really going to help you determine what type of tools you want to use, what questions you want to ask your community, what types of platforms and how much access you want to give them, a number of different things. But it's very important to start with this timeline and where you are in the process. So again, you're not asking for things that you're not going to use. That's one way to really easily break trust with your community, is asking them to give you a ton of feedback that you then don't use. And you don't follow up with them on what you've done with it and all of those things. So choosing the right tool for where you are in the process is very important. Related to that, making sure you're very clear on your goals and intended outcomes of your meeting. Going back to that IAP2 spectrum we just talked about, are you really just trying to educate your community and inform them about what's going on? That's going to be one type of meeting design that you're going to think through. That'll probably be more information out than really that feedback loop, but there's still ways to make that engaging and not super lecture heavy. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Or are you looking for them to inform recommendations or do some of the trade-off exercises, really help inform the decision-making process? Like there's a whole spectrum there, but it's just, the takeaway here is to be very clear on what your goal of your meeting is, so that you can match those tools, those techniques, and those different pieces of your meeting to help you meet those goals.
Level of public input desired. Another thing you need to clarify before start planning for public meetings or public engagement process as the whole. We're here for just to educate. As our public engagement is all about education, we're sending information out and that's about it. Or we really need this informed feedback that's gonna A, influence the final decisions and plan, or B, may or may not be reflected in the final decisions and plans. And this is very important to be clear with public, how their input, how you're gonna use their input and feedback, because that actually leads to that trust building and community buy-off when you're very clear at front. This is what we need to hear from this. This is how we're going to use this information in the next steps. And this is how you may or may not see this, your feedback, your concerns, your input reflected in the final documents and decisions. Again, you need to decide. Who will attend? So important, audience. We're going to touch on this over and over again. If it's a diverse audience, it's their first time in the meeting. They've never used, Zoom or Microsoft Teams before. We might have some folks who will require translation needs, things like that. Or is it a consistent participant? So you can spend less time going over Zoom controls and testing Zoom and troubleshooting because people already know what they're doing. Again, you need to know that upfront.
Another thing that I'm sure you all are very familiar with is trying to anticipate how contentious your meeting is going to be. Is it, maybe possible that things come up, or are you really expecting things to kind of explode? Do you have some grandstanders that you deal with on a regular basis that you want to try to balance with other pieces? Is it a really kind of emotionally charged issue that you're going to talk about? There's definitely some different meeting design techniques, both in person and online, that we'll talk about here to try to limit that, setting up different stations or virtually being able to keep people on mute. Is that a functionality that you want to have? So just trying to think through what some of the challenges or big things that could come up in these public meetings, and troubleshoot them up front and try to head them off before you're real time live in the meeting. Another important factor here, and this applies both to in-person and online meetings, is making sure you're thinking through your budget. Do you have no budget or a large budget or something in between? Again, we talked about a lot of these platforms do have a cost associated with them. So making sure you're clear on how much money you can spend. And if you're thinking through in-person meetings, all of the pieces that go into that. Is there a charge for AV? Do you have to pay for the space? Are you providing food? So just making sure you're thinking through all of those pieces and designing appropriately. So if you're not going to provide food, perhaps you don't want to meet over the lunchtime hour. Things like that. Just making sure that you're clear on all of your parameters of your meeting.
Is it me next, Melissa?
Yes.
I feel like it's internal training. We can say that. And staff time, again, just we hear over and over again, like how can we do more with less, and working through this kind of thought process and anticipating for budget and staff time helps you to do that, because public engagement, for those, you all do public engagement, all of it, 70% of you, takes a lot of time. Even organizing one meeting can take up to 40 plus hours of your staff time. So again, answering those questions, what is the internal capacity and capability to implement what level of public engagement? And as always, we always talk about it, and that circles back to those authentic public engagement that when you write those state grants, you want to tell the state how you did this authentic public engagements, how you engage those, what we call beyond the usuals, people who don't participate, who don't attend. Definitely what we've seen being helpful, using culturally and demographically appropriate meeting materials. And how do you get to those materials? Well, you just, make some draft and send it to the nonprofits groups who work with those communities and say, hey, what do you think? Does that make sense? Accounting for translation, ASL and closed captioning services, which Zoom platform does help to do that, and use focus groups to test visuals, materials, technologies before your meeting. So when your folks who don't really participate come to your meeting, they actually have a really good and satisfactory experience and they want to come back.
Okay. So we are going to let you guys take about a 5-minute break, go refill your coffee, grab water, check your email, whatever you need to do. And we will come back. We're at, looks like 11:03 right now. So maybe 11:08 to 11:10, somewhere in there. And we will next talk through some of the different tools and platforms available to do this online engagement.
Okay, it's 11:08. Let's keep going. We have about 40 minutes left of day one. Welcome back, everyone. Okay, so if you're wondering, like, Hannah, Melissa, that's why you're telling us all this. That's just a lot of information and a lot of things. Do we really need to do all that? So what we're sharing with you guys, based on our experience, based on what we're observing with other jurisdictions, this planning, this intentional planning, this clarity upfront that would come from your internal discussions, probably making several phone calls to stakeholders, consulting with them. That planning is very critical, because with this planning, you not only going to implement authentic public engagement, but you will be able to do more with less. So another critical step that you need to think about upfront and identify as a team for your project, what a specific public input are you looking for. With education component is going to be part of everything, no matter what you do. And sometimes your engagement is just education. Engagement can be, you need qualitative and quantitative input. Sometimes you need to learn from your audience, from stakeholders, geo-based, anything related to geo-based data. Sometimes it's just a transparent dialogue and working through with stakeholder groups to brainstorm solutions together through this transparent dialogues. Community-generated ideas, some alternatives is another level of input that out there, and trade-off analysis, prioritization. So on top of everything, there are different levels of input. It's not getting any easier. Another way to think about, yes, you can switch to another slide, Melissa. Next slide. Yes, another way to think about all these different engagement options and all these different tools and how can you match it to your meeting goals and desired public outcome is look at it on the IP2 spectrum, from informing public to collaborating for those community-generated ideas and solutions. And here you can see the list of various techniques. I just want to spend a little bit of time in this consult box where we're asking for some quick input from your public and what tools can you use. Polls and surveys, which you're already using. Chat, you're already using that. Word cloud, we demonstrated it today, another way to solicit some input. Virtual breakout groups, interactive commenting. There's technology out there where people can do interactive commenting in PDFs and interactive challenge budgets. And as you can see, there's all other tools, and we're not going to go into great detail because otherwise we're going to spend just 5 days in this training. But just be intentional where you are on the spectrum, what level of input and what is out there that you can use. Next slide, please. I'm going to pause for just one moment, and I want you to look at this slide, and we'll take about 20 seconds. I'm going to just have you looking at this slide and see if any of those tools familiar and what other some digital tools that we are missing on this slide. Type that in the chat box.
And again, one of the takeaways here, we're not recommending any of these as better than the other, but just to give you an idea of the breadth of tools that are out there and that they have a ton of different functionality. So if you're really just trying to inform, thinking about videos or Facebook Live or things like that, I mean, as you move across the spectrum, there's a whole host of different types of platforms out there and technology out there that can help you do that. A lot of polling software, we talked about Meeting-Sift, but that's definitely not the only one. There's a lot of different polling software out there. So again, the word of the day, I think, is intentional. So making sure you are clear about where you are on the spectrum and picking the appropriate tool or tools.
I'm seeing some great suggestions in the chat box. Thank you so much. So one thing I would like to share with you on this Involve, kind of like a middle spectrum with MindMixer and Social Pinpoint and Band the Table, MetricWest, all these tools, sometimes communities, you purchase this expensive tool and community don't use it. for whatever reason. So what we've seen some jurisdictions do, they actually have a public meeting and they're using that tool in real time. They break people into smaller groups and they have one person talking to the folks, to people in the groups and collecting those input in real time and actually plugging their input in in MindMixer, for example, doing this real-time mapping, filling out MindMixer tool by just talking to people. So this is another tip for you. If you purchase this expensive tool and no one is using it, you can just use it in real time in public meeting. Next slide, please. Okay, so you already did that. Thank you so much for sharing. We will add it to our tool madness slide.
So next, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the different platforms that are available. And again, this isn't quite as busy of a slide as some of the different public engagement tools and survey tools and things like that. But you also have a number of different choices to make when you're thinking through platforms for some of these virtual meetings. So you see just some of them there: Microsoft Teams, Zoom, GoToWebinar, and then there's another list of different things that you can do to live stream your events. WebEx is a similar platform to GoToMeeting. Adobe Connect is also similar in that space. So there's a lot of different webinar tools, meeting tools that you can use. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the different features here in a second. But again, the takeaway here is to make sure that the platform that you're using has the functionality that you need. So these are some of the most common ones that we've seen over the last few months really come into play. Zoom, obviously we're on it now. It has a number of different features, some of which we've demonstrated, and we're going to show you a few more over the next day. But it has the chat, you can poll, you can do breakout groups. Obviously we're screen sharing right now. The dot voting feature we already showed you. And as Hannah mentioned, it also does real-time translation, which can be really great if you have a large segment of your community that speaks a language other than English or English learners. So the takeaway there is Zoom has a lot of functionality, but there also are some security issues that I'm sure you've all seen and heard about coming up along the way there. Microsoft Teams has some similar functionality. Obviously, it has a chat function and screen share and dial-in option and document storage. This seems more useful for groups that meet on a regular basis or for your own internal collaboration. It doesn't quite have as many of the engagement features as some of the other platforms do, but with the file uploading and things like that, and you also have teams that you can chat amongst on there. So again, for recurring groups that are meeting, that might be an option to consider. GoToWebinar, it has some of the same functionality as Zoom that we're on today. You have the chat function and Q&A and polling and screen sharing and recording that Zoom all has as well. GoToWebinar is a little bit easier to, quote, lock down. So if you have really large meetings, hundreds of people at your public meeting, that you want to make sure that you're able to manage a little bit easier. You can keep the lines muted a little bit easier and funnel questions into staff to moderate and things like that. But it doesn't have some of the engagement features that the other ones do. And Remo is one that we've seen used more for, as you see here, open houses or conferences. The interesting thing here is the breakout groups on this platform, your participants can move freely amongst those, as opposed to Zoom or Teams, where you have to move people on the back end in terms of getting them into those breakout groups. So again, we're not promoting one of these over the other. The key takeaway here is to make sure that the platform that you're choosing really aligns with your meeting goals and your participants and what you need to achieve in terms of feedback, and picking the appropriate platform there. And again, this is also not an exhaustive list. There's a number of others, but this is kind of a good cross section to just show you some of the different ideas, the different engagement ability that some of these platforms have. And then just a quick note on in-person engagement, because we're hoping, as I'm sure you all are, that eventually in the not too distant future, we'll be able to meet with people in person again. So this is similar to the slide that Hannah talked through in terms of some of the different options available depending on the type of input that you're looking for. So you'll see them there. I'm not going to read this entirely, but I'm sure you're doing a lot of these types of things already. But this is just another note to be a little bit more intentional about that. If you're looking to just educate, think about staying on kind of the left-hand side of that spectrum there, and more information out, and then moving across as appropriate in terms of the feedback that you're looking for from your community. So we're going to pause here. We're going to move into a small group exercise next, but if there's any questions, we obviously just threw a lot of information and a lot of tools at you. So we want to make sure that we have time for questions if there are any. Carly or Nicole, are you seeing any questions?
I've been answering some questions in the chat box. Thank you for dropping those.
Yeah, we just have a question about more information on Zoom polling. Hannah, I think, mentioned that we will demonstrate that tomorrow, but could you just give us a quick overview of Zoom polling?
Yeah, the Zoom polling is you set it up in advance and you launch it in the meeting. Sometimes it doesn't launch. I had that happen several times to me. Fingers crossed, you launched it in the meeting, and it's just a multiple choice question. It's very limited in terms of polling functionality, but in terms of icebreakers and who is in the room type of questions, you can definitely do Zoom polling, and we'll demonstrate some of the questions tomorrow.
Anything else before we move on, Nicole, Carly?
Not seeing anything.
I think we're ready.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we are going to, again, we know we threw a lot of information at you over the last about 20 minutes. And so we really want to give you some space to think about this and to work through some of these ideas and conversations. So we're going to demonstrate another interactive technique for virtual meetings, and we're going to move everybody into breakout groups. So this is kind of high-level process here. We have scenarios set up for you. We're going to break everybody out into 6 groups. And so there's 3 scenarios. So 2 groups will be working with the same scenario. But the idea here is to take a look at that scenario and really have a group conversation around what your meeting goals are, to start to inform the types of feedback you're going to be looking for, who might attend your meeting, that type of thing. So really having that high-level conversation about goals and level of input and ways to collect feedback that you're looking for. Just a quick note on this front, we will be revisiting all of this tomorrow, and we're going to actually have you all map out a meeting based on that same scenario. So today we're doing kind of the brainstorming piece in terms of thinking through the goals and input, and then tomorrow we'll really get into that tactical piece about designing the different pieces of your meeting. Hannah, do you want to talk about some more logistics?
Yes, so once you get into your groups, folks, you're gonna first read the scenario, understand what we're trying to do here. Then you're gonna select a volunteer who's gonna report out. Nothing major, quick level overview of the group discussion. Also, if you can, please select a second volunteer to take notes of the group discussion. That would be great, because we're gonna be revisiting this scenario and some of the initial group discussions tomorrow. You will see reminders from our colleague Kim about timing, and I will be popping up in various groups just to listen in and jump in as needed. Groups will be facilitated by ILG and by some of the San Diego staff. Thank you so much, guys, for facilitating those groups. And you will have 25 minutes. We'll bring you back at 11:45.
Yeah, we're a little short on time, so we may have to adjust that a bit, because we do want to have time to have everybody report out about their goals and how the exercise was before we jump off the line. But we will give as much time as possible to have these discussions in the small groups.
Okay, so we're ready to send everyone to groups, Melissa?
I think so.
I'm ready. Okay.
Kim, use your power. And click on join when you see the pop-up thing on your screen.
Alfonso and Liz, have you guys been invited to a group?
No.
Liz, okay, let me see. Oh, you know what? I'll put you in group 6. Let's see, assigned to group 6. Perfect.
Perfect. Thank you.
And Alfonso, it looks like you are assigned to group 4 and haven't joined yet. Oh. Did someone come back out? Alfonso? Hi guys, sorry, we had an automatic timer on the breakout room, so I'm going to go ahead and reassign without the timer.
So do we actually have more time? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Sorry, we
I
probably
really
were.
rushed them through that.
I was gonna say, sorry, we probably interrupted some really good conversations there, so. But I will throw you guys right back in as soon as everyone's out.
Okay.
Oh, all right. Well, hopefully we'll be back.
Okay.
Oh, hi, sorry, I was just explaining there was an automatic timer on the breakout room. So I'm just gonna reassign everyone back to their rooms.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
We have more time to go back, is that?
you have more time. There we go, automatically. It will not automatically.
Yeah, we should have about 8 to 10 more minutes.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna open them all back up. You're back in the same rooms. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. We've demonstrated another Zoom technique when breakout groups doesn't go as well as planned. You just bring everyone back and send them in the breakout groups one more time. It is what it is. I hope you enjoyed participating in that. I certainly did. Okay, let's hear from the groups I participated in, had a really good discussions. I hope that's the case for the rest of the group. So let's hear from each group, and this is how we're gonna approach this, because we have 3 identical case study. We're gonna hear from the first group for the case study, and you guys spend about 1 minute reporting out. And then I'm gonna ask the second group with the same case study if they had any different discussions and anything to add to the first group report out. Sounds like a plan? Okay, Melissa, can we please have our PowerPoint slide with guiding questions? Let's keep it brief, 1 minute report out. And I'm gonna start with Julia's group, the housing case study. Who is our volunteer for Julia's group?
Hi, Elizabeth Dixon.
Hi, Elizabeth. Okay, so just in 2 or 3 sentences, tell the rest of the people what was your public engagement scenario, and then in 1 sentence, the goal of your meetings. What did you guys decide? Tools and techniques you're gonna use to reach those goals, and any aha moments.
Yeah, our scenario is a bonus program within TPAs where single-family zoned lots could be developed as multifamily development. And our goal was really to inform and involve the public because we're planning kickoff engagement meetings. And we really wanted to inform people on a couple of levels. We wanted to have some information prior to the meeting that's available online in video formats, having things like murals so that people could start providing comments to really get the conversation going. But we wanted people to be mildly informed about why we were doing this program because we're suffering from a housing crisis. And then we wanted to have these kickoff meetings where people could then get more information about the specifics of our project and what level of feedback that we're really looking for from them. And we discussed that the level of feedback that we're looking for is that while this is our specific program and we're not really wanting to change the scenario that we're working on here, there's room to provide feedback kind of within these bounds. If people have specific situations that they think maybe there should be design criteria or historic districts are covered where they wouldn't really apply to this or something like that. And tools and techniques, yeah, I mentioned mural, having some video opportunities up front, and then having, we talked about Remo so that people could go into breakout groups and that sort of thing pretty easily and get to move around so they could be involved in different levels of discussions.
Great, thank you so much, Elizabeth. Excellent thinking process, gold star. Melissa's group, do we have a volunteer? Anything else to add to what Elizabeth shared? Anything you guys thought differently?
Am I reporting back on this? All right, yeah, Alex. So our group, we took a slightly different approach rather than having like a general public meeting. We wanted to actually bring together stakeholders first, key stakeholders, development communities, different CBOs, especially related to affordable housing, equity folks, and community representatives, homeowners, etc., to initially inform, consult on the proposal that the city is exploring and starting from there. So we, thought, all right, Zoom meeting, breakout, polling, the huge for this initial meeting. So it's more of a inform and consult and potential future collaboration. So that was what we did.
Love it, Alex. So you guys are going more like testing the waters first before rolling out.
Yes, it's very controversial.
Okay, let's move along. Thank you for sharing. Next, we're going to Parks case scenario with Heidi and Nicole's group. Can we start with Nicole's group volunteer? Tell us in a couple of sentences what's your public engagement project was about, and then the rest.
That's me, right? Okay. At this point, given that we've got a plan and a final environmental document, and we're looking to go to council at the beginning of the year, we're looking at more of an informational Zoom webinar, perhaps one that is facilitated by a moderator, an outside moderator, where we can inform community planning group members, those in support, those in opposition, and a broader community, hopefully, that we haven't reached yet, on the different aspects of the plan. Again, because it's pretty well baked, there's not a lot of input that we're seeking, but I think we would like to understand the level of support on the plan as a whole, and even perhaps some different aspects of the plan, which we could achieve through polling, including some demographic information in that polling, so we can understand generally kind of who's present in the meeting, whether it's a cross section of the city, since this is a citywide plan, and be able to report back to the council on who attended generally in terms of representation across the city and what the level of support and opposition was. If there was minor feedback that was provided that would be feasible to incorporate into the plan at this late stage, we could consider that. Or if there were comments related to implementation, we could kind of push that down the line to the implementation side of things, and let them know. But primarily use it as another avenue to let them know that they're being heard, to inform them, and to let the council know that we have done a good faith effort throughout the process and in these last meetings to inform folks.
Great, Kelly. Thank you for sharing. You guys are right on with your thinking process. I hope Nicole didn't just give it away. Okay, anything to add from Heidi's group? Anything to add to what Kelly was saying?
I think that, yeah, we said a very similar thing. So it's, sort of this toward the end of the engagement process. So our goal here really is to educate folks and try to speak to their fears and their opposition with information, but also we want to be listening to people as well, so that they feel heard. And our ability to change the plan is probably limited since it's a little bit baked and later on in the process, but we'll be making refinements from as we can, and lining up our supporters, and we'll do this through video and just general slides and information, through polling and Q&A as well via webinar format.
Great, thank you guys. Okay, we're gonna move to the next group. It's community plan, and we're gonna go with Mike's groups first, who is our volunteer, to Colette to report out. Colette, if you can perhaps do it in 1 minute, just give us a brief overview of what's the public engagement case and the goals and the tools.
Well, if it is, it's not me who's doing the report, I'm sorry.
It's me.
It's Nancy.
Yes. Okay, so our goals were to identify roadblocks for adoption of a draft land use plan and to build a foundation for future support. Our tools and techniques is we want to make sure that we're clear that the changes that we're seeking are more like scalpel based instead of wholesale changes. And our technique is to use like a flagging tool to allow ways for people to flag problems with the land use plan before we get to hearing. And then our aha moments were that we need to make sure that we're crossing the digital divide specifically in this community, and that we should leverage that this community wants change over the status quo, which is pretty rare for most of our community plan updates.
Great, thank you, Nancy. And I think last but not least, Carla's group.
Take it away, Vicki.
Hi, yeah. So we kind of imagined a scenario when we were just introducing this continuation of the plan update, but also to convey kind of that what we are not looking to reopen the full process. So having a community meeting that's focused on education, but also with some input components to help get people engaged in the process, conveying to them what areas we are open to changing and maybe gauging their level of interest in learning more or engaging in those topics. And there's another thing that keeps slipping my mind. Oh, and maybe some questions about like, were they engaged in the previous process or are they new to the process to understand what their level of familiarity is? And then maybe to have some stakeholder interviews as well with some of the more institutional or business stakeholders who may not be feeling willing to engage in a open public process. And yeah, agreed. Digital divide and language divide as well, addressing those.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Vicky. Okay, that wraps up our report out. All excellent thoughts, suggestions, ideas. Let's give ourselves a round of virtual applause, and specifically for people who report out. Report it out. Some of them we voluntold. Okay, Melissa, take it away.
Just a few more things before we let you go today. We just wanted to share some key takeaways from what we discussed today. Again, going back to where we started, making sure that the goals for your public engagement effort and meetings are clear. That's really going to help inform the process. Again, clarity on the level of input that you're looking for is also critical to having productive meetings and making sure that you're designing your meeting appropriately. And then the outcomes, the audience, and other factors will definitely inform your choice on engagement tools and meeting platforms. So hopefully, this is all what you're taking away today from this discussion. And again, this is just the beginning. We'll be talking more tomorrow about some of that. Just quickly wanted to share some of the different techniques that we used today in a virtual environment. This is what we call quote behind the curtain, and show you what we planned and thought through before we designed this meeting and this training. So we did small groups with a report out that we just modeled. We also talked about large group shares. So again, we just did that from the report out from the small groups. We did the round robin this morning in terms of the introductions that we did. We had a mix of lecture, so Hannah and I kind of talking at you, as well as breaks and activities for you all. We showed you the instant polling and the dot voting exercises that you can do in a virtual environment. We had the chat box where you guys were sharing information about digital tools and asking questions. And then we provided some real-time help and consulting in terms of answering those questions. We presented visuals and handouts that we sent to you all yesterday. And we heard from everybody on the line. So we definitely were able to share multiple voices with you all today, not just our team, but from your own teams as well. So really quickly tomorrow, we also, again, will start at 10 a.m. It's the same Zoom link that you were connected to today. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking more about meeting design, so different tools that you can use in your meetings. And then we're going to spend some time also talking about facilitation and how to head off some of the challenges that we discussed with both your meeting design and your facilitation techniques. So be prepared to talk about that. We will revisit that same scenario we had today and design that meeting that we were talking about and setting the goals for just now. Please feel free to reach out to anybody on the ILG team if you have any questions or comments. And then just one final plug, we're going to start tomorrow by answering your quote burning questions. So if you have any questions that you weren't able to ask today, please drop those in the chat box now and we'll start the day off tomorrow with answers to those questions. So with that, I just want to thank everybody for joining us this morning. I know this is not the easiest platform to do training in, so we appreciate your flexibility and hope that you learned something at least about some of the platforms and techniques today. And we look forward to seeing you at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Hannah, any final thoughts? Okay. Or anybody on the team, anybody? Perfect.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
you guys know that,
Can we
since-
stop the recording too?
yes, wait. It's